the next really big thing I wanted to hit on here was something that, man, it just, I'll admit, it irks the fuck out of me whenever I hear them use this, and it's the fucking Nuremberg defense. And it always has been, and it always will be fucking bullshit, 100%. And the Nuremberg defense, if you're not familiar with the Nuremberg trials, were the trials where the Nazis used the excuse essentially for the actions that they had taken during the war that we were just following orders. We're just doing our jobs. Well, this is something that you'll hear, and I'm sure people have experience with this. You'll hear fucking cops use this all the time. All the time. In my experience here, not just one, but every single one of those officers that I interacted with during the situation all used that excuse. And I called them out on it. I told them that, you're using the Nuremberg defense, and that's bullshit. Right. Because when you look at it, let's break it down. Let's use some critical thinking here. Let's remove the ego and the badge and all this, and just break it down to simple logic here. Person A tells person B to go do something that will violate person C. And then person B actually goes and does that. And then they're saying, well, this other person told me to do it. That's like what a little kid does when they do something wrong and then, but this person did this, or he told me to do it. Mm-hmm. That's a bullshit fucking excuse. Stop being an order follower and use your conscience and your own fucking discernment to act with what is right. Stop fucking using the cop-out. Full fucking pun intended. There's a reason that's a term. Because they don't know how to accept any fucking personal responsibility. It's something, it irks the fuck out of me. Honestly, like, if you can tell.
Right.
You want to go ahead and lead into the next?
I was going to mention the cop-out thing. That's definitely, that's exactly what that means is I'm not responsible. I'm giving you an excuse why I'm not responsible for my own actions. And I was also going to say, by these standards, you can almost say that there's no moral difference between a police officer and a hitman. Think about that for a second. What does a hitman do? Or a mercenary? They do a certain job for money. They don't ask questions. Who do you want me to kill? They might have some rule about no kids or whatever, but they don't ask questions. Well, this person you want me to kill, are they hurting people, or you just don't like them? Or no, they don't ask questions. They don't give a shit about that. They just care about, do you have the money that I require to do this job? Okay, it's done. And that's it. And, who's more morally culpable, the hitman or the person who called the hit? Well, the person who actually put a bullet in somebody. So a cop-out saying, well, he just told me to, I'm not responsible. I mean, that's, it's the mentality of a child, like you said yourself. Kids do that all the time. In fact, that reminds me, I read something last night that I found really profound that my friend had posted on Facebook, that basically narcissism is essentially a form of arrested development or stunted emotional maturity, because all kids are actually narcissists to varying degrees, of course, but they have that like outrageous ego. They can't really, everything is about them getting their needs met. How can they get something out of the situation? And that's just kids though, and people understand that's a part of their development. Well, it's usually a trauma that creates, a blockage in their emotional development that just basically keeps them trapped in that state of immature advancement throughout their life. So they just kind of became frozen in that state of time throughout the rest of their life. And now we just call them a narcissist because they're an adult version of a child.
That's very, very interesting, very profound, I think. Because, like I said, I literally had some of these order followers just tell me that, we don't agree with the law, but it's the law and it will be enforced. you know.
Hmm.
So like you don't agree with it, but you're still going to be that you're going to go and take action on something that you don't agree with just because some asshole passed an ordinance back 30 fucking years ago that you don't know and you've never met, but you're just going to do it because it says on a piece of paper somewhere, you know. I
Right.
mean, it's literally just you have to be a stupid fucking person, like a retarded person, to be an order
Yeah.
follower. Yeah, I mean, legitimately, you have to be in a state of that you're holding a belief system that is actually holding you back from forward progress. That's what retarded means. Like when you're, something is fire retardant, it stops the progression of the fire.
Right.
So, that, to be in a state of mind that you can literally actually utter the words, well, I don't agree with this, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'll use violence to get it done. That's a
Yeah.
totally unconscious and unaware, unrealized person.
Right. And again, just look at what kids do when you have siblings that have a sort of a disagreement and one of them's not getting their way. What do? Well, they're going to go appeal to authority. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to run and go tattle to mommy or daddy, and they're probably going to give some like twisted, tainted version of the story to make them seem like the victim, and he won't, blah blah blah, and they're leaving out certain details or whatever. And then the parent, if they're somewhat apathetic or passive, they'll probably just, like, they're busy doing something and they'll be like, okay, just blah blah blah, and give them some kind of dictate. The kid comes back all high and mighty like, I've got the official word from mommy or daddy. Well, daddy said you have to blah blah blah, and then like the kid's like, that's not fair, like you could see this playing out so plainly in kids, and this is exactly how grown ass adults are operating, calling the cops on each other and trying to like appeal to authority and getting laws passed and all this kind of stuff, to get their way. It's mini me Satanism, mini me narcissism.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, and I think a great point that you had talked about was that, we always like to talk about allegory and mythology. So in movies, there's kind of like a
Right.
general stigma that the hero faces sometimes. Would you kind of like to delve into that there?
Yeah, yeah. And so like I was a big movie buff, especially growing up, and I loved watching like movies from the 80s and 90s, and this was definitely even a more uh, prevalent theme, almost to the point of being a cliche, is like somewhere in the end of the movie where it's the final conflict and shit's really going down, and someone is faced with this sort of a moral decision, like something's happening. I have the responsibility. I have the ability to respond. I can do something about it. And then there's your commanding officer or whatever in your ear screaming, stand down, that's an order. And they're basically given this moment of choice right there in the movie of choosing, do I do what I know is right or do I follow orders? And usually in the movies, they disobey the order and do what they do, and then their officer loses their shed, and they're like, you're gonna be fired and you're gonna be court-martialed and all this kind of stuff, and they don't give a shit because they know they're standing in their own truth. They're doing what they know is right. Orders be damned.
Mm,
But and it's ironic that we glorify the heroes of the movies and the rebels, and the Rebel Alliance and Star Wars, and like William Wallace, and we love the rebels in the movies because subconsciously we wish we could be them, but in real life we're basically licking the boots of the stormtroopers and sucking Darth Vader's mechanical cock in real life. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
it's an interesting dichotomy to to
No,
observe.
that's interesting, and I think another thing that we can see here that in context to how media can be used is a lot of the how many shows out there are, especially on like mainstream TV, that you see they're just police shows, or fucking Law and Order, cops, all these, and they're glorifying police,
Hmm.
Law and Order Special Victims Unit, putting that gaslighted lie out there that they actually protect people and they do things like chase down horrible violent criminals, when in reality they don't. And they just
Right.
harming innocent people for the vast majority of their job. um,
Hmm.
but that's something that you see, I think, a lot, and I think it's a very interesting thing that look at and analyze. Would you like to
Yeah.
go with that?
Yeah, even that name Law and Order is so ass backwards, and there's actually two ways you can look at that. First of all, it is an obfuscation, because putting those two together, law and order, is almost like saying anarchy and chaos. It's the opposite of anarchy and chaos, is law and order. They're basically equating that if you don't have law, you don't have order, or it would just be chaos. But the irony here is that, just like with all the control structures, that are based, again, by definition being satanic, because they are people who think they are God, and they are creating control structures that are serving as a proxy to things that exist in nature. So man's law is a proxy to natural law, which is very real and is always in effect. So law is order in terms of natural law, but man's law is chaos, and goes in direct opposition to natural law. So it's such a tricky, it's the smoke and mirrors. Like you're looking at a reflection of something, and you can't tell if it's real or if it's just the exact inversion of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's like I said, it's kind of, for me, it's like a glass of poison, I think, would be a good way to look at it, and, you're giving someone poison under the guise of, oh, this is medicine,
Right. Honeyed wine with arsenic in it or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Very interesting.
And then like that show Cops that you mentioned too. What's, the theme song of that? Bad boys, what you gonna do when they come for you? So it's almost, it's like making you feel like either you are somebody who breaks the law here and there because you are, a conscious being who doesn't really put much weight or value on that, and they're gaslighting you, saying what you gonna do when they come for you, or you're creating a state of Stockholm syndrome where you're identifying as, well, I'm an upstanding citizen and I follow all the laws because I'm a good, obedient slave. And then you're creating separation there by saying, well, I don't have anything, if you don't have anything to hide, you have nothing to be afraid of. Well, I follow the laws, so I'm not scared of the police,
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's even then, again, tying it back to more gaslighting that, right. If you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to be afraid of. That's bullshit. You couldn't be doing it. You could be doing nothing fucking wrong at all. But if you have some predator come after and try to, attack you, you have every fucking right to be afraid for that. That's a totally normal and natural response.
It's like when a gazelle sees a lion in a field and they go like this and their eyes get big, and then the lion goes, "Why are you so scared?"
Yeah,
I'm just eating grass just like you.
That's funny. But I think another thing that we can see here is that obviously with cults, something you see is that they always need their buddies. In the Marine Corps, they even call that the buddy system. You always have to have your wingman.
Mm-hmm.
You always have to have that backup. And there's a lot of reasons for it. One is because they're very, very operating from a place of cowardice. So they need that feeling of having, someone there to protect them. But it's also a form of reinforcing the mind control too, because then there's always someone there to co-sign your bullshit.
Oh, that's good. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's a very interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, it validates your authority.
Yes, exactly. And a big thing that we can see here, obviously, an issue with police is the violence towards animals. Not only do they shoot a lot of people, but they shoot, even way more animals like dogs.
Right.
And, there's more than enough, video evidence and things out there that people can see that, that they'll even do things like, when people aren't home, come to their backyard, call the dog up to them, and then just shoot the dog for, they do really, really fucked up, horrible things on a very regular basis to animals. But one of the early traits and things that we can see with psychopaths and especially ones that will act out violently, because do understand that not all psychopaths will necessarily act out with physical violence. A lot of times it's just emotional, psychological, spiritual violence in the sense, and they will, for example, like, CEOs in the marketplace and stuff, they get their fix from, manipulating people, getting millions of dollars. Other classes of psychopaths get their kicks from actually enacting physical violence and taking life, and taking the lives of animals like that. That's something that you can see as a sign of that, especially, when children do that. A lot of times that will indicate sometimes, especially if it's a continued behavior, that will indicate psychopathy later on in life. But when they're doing it even as adults, well, you got a pretty good fucking indicator of what state of mind that person's operating from.
Yeah. No, it's a way of getting away with violence.
Right.
Animals don't have a voice. They can't really tell anyone if or stand up for themselves too much. It's kind of the same as like what you talked about, like people who join the military so that they can kill because well, it's state sanctioned violence, so nobody's going to stop me. All you have to do is say, oh, no one was around, the dog tried to attack me, and so I feared for my life and I killed it. Nobody's going to ask any questions.
Right, or even like a bullshit excuse, like there's some law that there's the certain breed of dog. Oh, those are pit bulls, so we have the right to just come up and shoot them or throw them in a cage and euthanize them.
You know what?
It's a fucking execution either way.
Cops are a dangerous breed of dog. How about that?
Right. Well, and I think this is something we can look at that ties back to a point we were talking earlier with this specific subject of how they actually they only create more problem and chaos in society. People are familiar with like animal rescue and shelters. The breeds of that are considered pit bulls. There's a lot of them in shelters, and a good portion of them are there not because their owner didn't want them or their owner dropped them off, but because they were stolen from the owner and put in there, and then they're euthanized, and literally millions of them get put down just because for existing, just because of their breeding, because there's some stupid fucking law or some ordinance or whatever the fuck it is. But what that does is that's putting, not only is it like, emotionally harming, the families of people losing their dogs, it's affecting, the consciousness of the animals themselves. They're the ones that are actually getting really fucking punished for it, and they're not the ones doing anything wrong. It's putting strain on the resources that shelters have, because now they have a whole breed of dogs that are coming in just because of their breed, not because there's anything wrong with them. So that puts more strain on the resources. That is making it harder to actually rescue and make room for other animals, that if these breeds weren't coming in like that, there'd be a lot more resources available to actually help, other animals that need it. So, I mean, it puts strain on things throughout the entire system, and it's nothing but trauma, because that's what these predators feed on. It's trauma. They get that adrenaline rush from it, that, they've gotten over on a person. They've had power and authority, and they've dominated over a person. So then they've boosted, their own narcissism.
Right. Well, they're energy vampires that feed on the fear vibration.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, like, we talk about, violence towards animals, domestic abuse and things like that. And, those aren't our opinions. Those are verifiable statistics. You can pull those up anywhere. And I mean, there's just no denying that it's a big problem. But yet still people want to, make excuses and say, well, it's just a few bad apples, not all cops are bad. It's just a few that, that ruin it for the rest. And, there's a quote by Robert Higgs that I think one of the, best ways I've ever heard it summed up, in a very simple way. And so I'm going to read that quote here. The whole good cop, bad cop question can be disposed of much more decisively. We need not enumerate what proportion of cops appears to be good, or listen to someone's anecdote about his Uncle Charlie, an allegedly good cop. It's so true. We need only consider the following. A cop's job is to enforce the laws, all of them. Many of the laws are manifestly unjust. Some are even cruel and wicked. In fact, I would say most laws have nothing to do with morality. They're just, control and extortion method. Therefore, every cop has to agree to act as an enforcer for laws that are manifestly unjust or even cruel and wicked. There are no good cops by that very definition. If I said, I am a landscaper, right? And that's my job. And then when my client asks me, I need you to trim the bushes and weed eat around the sidewalk, and I go, nah, I'm just not going to do that. I don't really feel like that. Am I a good landscaper? No, because I'm literally refusing to do my job. So if a cop was to actually exercise conscience and say, oh, that law is bullshit, I'm not going to enforce that, and then they're picking and choosing which laws to enforce, they're not a good cop because they're bad at their job. They're literally refusing to do their job. So, and obviously the longer you choose to be a good person and be a bad cop, well, you're probably not going to be a cop for very long, because eventually the higher ups are going to, recognize this and that and say, well, how come you don't have any, marijuana arrests, or how come you're not writing speeding tickets or whatever? You're probably going to get canned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't be a good person and a good order follower.
Right, because they're diametrically opposed.
Yeah, to be a good person, you have to actually exercise conscience and to choose, right action over wrong action on your own, not be a mindless fucking dog that does what someone else tells you when they tell you to do it.
Right. And there's so many examples of, I mean, you could call it extreme, but let's look at things that are actually were laws, Jim Crow, slavery, internment of Japanese American citizens in World War II. I mean, fuck's sake, the cops killed Jesus. If you believe that story, literally, that actually happened. I saw a meme yesterday because it was Easter that summed it up so perfectly. It's the Roman soldiers talking to Jesus is hanging on the cross, and they're going, we're real sorry about this, Mr. Jesus. We think you're a swell guy, but we're just doing our job. We're just following the orders that...
I don't agree with crucifixion, but it's the law, and it's got to be enforced.
Right.
Allegorically, it's a great example.
Yeah, I mean, that just doesn't even remotely have a leg to stand on. Anyone can see, the Underground Railroad, those were dirty criminals. Are you going to say that they should have just followed the law? I mean, come on, think before you open your mouth and say some stupid shit like that, because it's just it's not even remotely rational.
Right. And the state we can look at here, I think, with order followers, is that they're coming from a place of being disempowered cowards. And their job really depends on the unholy trinity of ignorance, apathy, and cowardice. You want to delve into that a little bit there?
We got into that dynamic in our last episode, where we talked about our mission statement being empowered, inspired, and encouraged, and what that really means, and how the opposite of that is sort of the unholy trinity, which is ignorance, apathy, and cowardice / laziness. Well, by definition, an order follower is a manifestation of all three of those aspects. You have to be ignorant to natural law in order to take a job like that. You have to not have empathy, because you would feel for the people you're violating and stop yourself and go, oh my God, what am I doing? This is wrong. And you have to be a coward, because essentially, the true form of courage is a manifestation of your sovereignty. And when you take the job of an order follower, you're giving your sovereignty away, because again, sovereignty comes with conscience, with your free will. You can't have free will and be an order follower at the same time. You become a machine, a flying monkey for the wicked witch. And So it hits on all three of those points. You are a living, I don't know what's the word, like you're illegitimate in every way by your being and your actions.
Yeah, you're unrealized. And
Yes,
I think it's
a
it's
golem
also right.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Um, yeah, I had something that you had said something that spawned it, but I lost it. But anyway, you know, we can also see that oh, that's what it was. Is that um, what their cowardice is really is they're ignoring their responsibility. To
Mm.
actually choose to act with right action. And
Mm.
obviously to be an order follower, it starts with ignorance, because what are you ignoring? You are ignoring that responsibility, your personal responsibility to act with free will. You're trying to abdicate that away really fucking poorly. And you're just being totally ignorant of that, and then acting and just doing what you're told instead of taking that responsibility to do it yourself. So it's I think you said it well, is where an order followers, it's the absolute embodiment of that unholy trinity of ignorance, apathy, and cowardice.
Mm.
um
Very well said.
and we can, I think we can also look at here, because take things back to Trivium, we really like to take it to the foundational premises things are built on. One of the premises that government, and the police and, everything is built on is that, people are dangerous and can't be in charge of themselves. So the solution is to put
Put
people in charge.
put
It's
people in
a
charge of
really
other people.
circular logic, or lack of a logic. I would say it's probably a better description. Um,
Right.
but it's really, all government, all order followers. It's all based on that some people, a group of people needs to have control, and that other people need to be controlled by them. And then the
Hmm.
people who are being controlled, if they disobey or anything, the other group is then allowed to use violence and coercion against them.
Right.
And there's another word for that, and it's slavery.
Yeah. Or you could kind of tie it back to the mentality behind eugenics and Nazism and classism,
Mm,
that you have a ruling class that's fit to rule, and everyone else is just genetically inferior, intellectually inferior, too stupid to be in
mm.
charge of themselves. And
Yeah, it's
so they
social
need to be herded.
Darwinism even.
They need to be herded like cattle. Right. Exactly.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, another I think interesting character that we can kind of see here to analyze with this is Cartman from South Park, and this was a character you had brought up in our little kind of pre-chat when we were brainstorming and stuff. Would you like to delve into the Cartman character a little bit here, Logan?
Absolutely, yes. He's one of my all-time favorite characters because he's just so funny, and because there's so much truth there in the psychology of Eric Cartman, the character. And anyone familiar with the show, there's certain episodes where he is depicted as a cop, and he's got like the mirrored aviator sunglasses, and he goes around harassing people. And what's his tagline that he says to everybody? Respect my authority. And like, that sounds funny, but really think about it. Respect my authority. I swear those guys, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they have a very deep understanding of things, I think. And I mean, it really does come back to authority, and why government itself is so very dangerous and appeals to the ego and the narcissistic mindset of, yes, I have authority. My God complex has me elevated above other people, in the ruling class and then the slave class and all that kind of shit. And so, it's funny on the surface, but really think about it. Why did they depict Cartman as a cop going around saying respect my authority? Well, just look at who Cartman is as a character, as a person. He's fat, he's insecure, he's like kind of retarded, and his sense of power comes from kind of bullying other people, even his own friends. He's always being a real jerk to. Failure to have meaningful social relationships.
Ooh.
All the other kids, they don't really like Cartman. They just kind of hang out with him because you know, like they always have, or I don't really know why they hang out with Cartman. He's a fat asshole. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
So you know, take it for what it is. I just thought that was a really interesting sort of allegory to observe that, you know, they picked him to depict that the perfect psychology for who, you know, you could totally see Cartman growing up and loving to be a cop. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Right. Yeah. One, I think an interesting thing about Cartman is you can see he's like a very wounded child. You know, like
Yeah,
in the show, they make fun of it in a funny way that, you know, like he doesn't have a, you know, he doesn't know who his father is. And,
he's got mommy issues. Yeah,
you know, like,
dad
you
is
know,
not
yeah, it's mom's
present.
crackhead and all these things, you know, but obviously what's that doing, you know, and he's a child that, like, you know, he doesn't have any boundaries or anything like that. So he just you know, he's just
Right.
becomes this like blob, this narcissistic blob that goes around, you know, being a dick to everyone. But I think
Right.
it's very interesting to observe that from, you know, an allegorical perspective. Um,
Absolutely.
you know, and then I think, you know, here on a more serious point too, we can delve into the police oath itself. You know, I think it has some interesting things in it that we can look at. You know, and this is similar to the oath in the military, but, you know, for each
Mm,
obvious service that's, you know, kind of fine tuned for that. But
right.
this will get the general gist of it, and it states is this: I, you know, such and such, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And this is the part that I find very interesting: that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I
Hmm.
will well and faithfully discharge the duties of office which I'm about to enter. So help me God. So that
Right.
last part there, because what does the universe operate under? It's under free will. And when
Consent.
if you don't understand magic and ritual, when you're taking an oath, it's a magical ritual. That's what you're doing. Even if you don't fucking realize it, that's what you're doing. It's going to have an effect on the subconscious and the unconscious mind, and it will have an effect on your life. Because not only are you speaking that spell out into existence, you know, but you're speaking it to yourself.
Mm.
You know, so it's hitting you on multiple levels. It's going inward and outward
As
and having an
within, so
effect on
without.
both. Absolutely.
Correspondence. And I think it's
So
also worthy to note here, you know, what this is bringing up for me is how this whole like Black Lives Matter and then Blue Lives Matter, and what a wonky and sort of like absurd dichotomy that is, because, you know, uh, if we're going by the official narrative that, you know, that black people are, you know, being systematically oppressed and targeted by police, which I think there's some truth to that. They're being profiled, and you know, being black is not a choice. You're born that way, and you're being discriminated against based on something you had literally no control over, no choice in the matter, versus a police officer who, in their very oath, they're stating clearly, I'm choosing to do this of my own free will, you know, and they're putting themselves in that situation. So to say police are being discriminated against, you know, it's not in the same class whatsoever.
right,
The
absolutely.
prejudice against cops, it's like, you know, it's like saying you're prejudice against murderers or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and, you know, again here, you know, they take it freely without any mental reservation or evasion. So they're not thinking for themselves. They're taking it. They're doing what they're told, and they're going to enforce whatever the duty of that office is. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're swearing to God. Well, which God? You know, I would say it's the God of the state.
Hmm.
You know,
Or Jehovah
um,
even.
yeah, which,
Yeah,
you know,
Scotty
that's a whole
Stackleton.
nother episode, but he's a psychopath all in himself, you know. But that's a whole nother
Right.
box of goodies we got to open up later. So, um, so I
Mm.
think that's, you know, interesting to look at. Um, and another thing that you had mentioned was another form of gaslighting in the context of the reading of rights. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Sure. Real quick before I get into that, though, I also wanted to mention that, you know, looking at this oath, they're swearing. allegiance to the Constitution, or they're swearing to uphold and defend the Constitution. So first of all, you could look at that two ways. You know, um, the as we said earlier, most laws on the books have nothing to do with morality or rights. In fact, most laws are a very obvious and blatant violation of human rights. So by their own standards, the second that they take that oath, they would either, you know, not be like, how do I put this? Like, they would be unable to do their job by keeping to their oath, or again, they would be, you know, picking and choosing to not enforce most of the laws. Like, they would just be, you know, driving around looking for, you know, active crimes happening, or to protect somebody or something like that. So like you could say, you know, playing the devil's advocate, yeah, well, the Constitution has the Bill of Rights and is designed to protect people of their rights and all that kind of thing. But by its very different definition in the state of things currently, that as soon as they take that oath, their job is almost, you know, null and void, and their best option is to just, I mean, why even become a cop in the first place if you know that that's the state of things currently?
Right. Exactly.
But
I
okay,
think you said you had a second point with that though as well.
not on that. I was gonna
Okay.
get into the Miranda rights.
Oh yeah. I'd love for you to open that one up.
Yeah, because again, I think that's just yet another example of gaslighting, and you could look at that a couple of ways as well. First of all, you know, it's built on some false premises. First of all, that rights come from government, so they're reading you your rights as if they're bestowing your rights, you know, from them as a official arbiter of the law, you know, the man's law, and so they're gifting you or bestowing you your rights from their mouth, as ironically they're violating your rights. By the way, ironic, isn't it? And the second, you know, false premise there is that it kind of comes with this assumption that you're too stupid or ignorant to either know or discover your rights on your own. So they're mansplaining your rights to you, basically. Like, that's what that comes down
to. Yeah. No, and it's definitely, you know, again, it's built, you know, set on that premise that, you know, rights aren't something that is discoverable in nature. You know, it's something that is, subjective, you know, and more, you know, getting into, you know, moral relativism, that, you know, things can just be subjective, and that it's okay to do something on this side of the line, but on the other side of the line, it's not okay. And if you do this over here, we'll violate you. But, you know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense if you actually apply critical thinking and care.
Right. And the irony of how their judiciary action becomes null and void if they failed to read you your rights, as if you didn't have them unless they read them to you. I mean,
it's definitely, you know, it's absolutely I think an excellent example of the extreme gaslighting that they use
and sorcery
in their very existence. I mean, it's riddled throughout. It's not just a small incident that this happens in. You know, so obviously this leads into, you know, as I was mentioning, police by default practice moral relativism. By default, they practice social Darwinism, ego gratification. You know, these are all obviously pillars of the dark mindset. And that idea that, you know, well, it's totally normal for some people to dominate and control other people, and, you know, some people are too stupid, so they just need to be controlled by us, and if they don't do what we say, we can use violence against them. And it's a total mindset of a psychopath. And this is what the control system needs, because that, you know, the ones at the top that very much are this way, they have to give that mini-me mindset to the ones below them in order to get them to go along with that. So then the fields and the hierarchical systems that they create draw these types of personalities towards that, and then it just helps feed that system. And then most people who aren't psychopaths and who have empathy and care and compassion, they won't actually take actions that are nearly extreme as psychopaths will.
Right.
They tend to like not want to create that like most people don't really want conflict. If given the opportunity, the vast majority of people will just want to be, left alone and not really have anyone mess with them and violate them. Whereas, the psychopath, that's what they're all about, is creating conflict because it gives them that adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's very interesting to look at.
And taking it back to the magical perspective for a second too, and how words and symbols are used to such a degree to manipulate reality, to manipulate consciousness, and create deception, especially dealing with the psychopathic system. One thing that I became very aware of in my several years back when I really got into looking at symbolism and the effects that they play on the subconscious mind. And so if you had to pick one symbol to represent police, like what would that be in your mind?
The badge, I think, is obviously one that comes up.
Right. And what is night? I don't know if I've ever seen a badge that doesn't have some form of sun symbolism on it.
Right.
So there's so many layers that you could look at that in. First of all, is the pentagram, which obviously is not an inherently evil symbol on its own. It just represents the four elements with the fifth element of ether and spirit. But I say that of the majority of ones, especially on the side of the cop cars that you see on the passenger and driver side doors, there is a star with some kind of sigil in the middle of it, and more often than not, I'm not sure what the actual ratio is, the star is pointed downwards, which is an inherently negative or dark connotation to that symbol, because you're putting the top spire, which is spirit, down below, so you're basically giving materialism primacy over spirit. Mm-hmm. And saying the spirit is lesser, basically.
Right.
I mean, first of all, that's not an accident. You'd have to be an idiot to think, oh, it's just coincidence, it doesn't mean anything. And so if you first accept that it does mean something, what does that lead you to look at by following that line of logic of, okay, they're not doing this by accident, they're doing this very specifically for a reason. Why is most of these organizations seeming to be run by really dark people? Because it's only the higher ups that are creating and choosing the symbols that they're putting on the cars and on the badges and stuff like that.
I would just have one little caveat to that, and it's that the inverted pentagram isn't necessarily always inherently evil. It's actually an older pagan symbol that a lot of times will represent the internal aspect of things, or the feminine side of things. But then that has then been taken, and there's also the context, because that's the thing with symbolism too. We can also see that there is a lot of different ways to interpret similar symbols. So in the context of how the dark ones who are using this control system are operating, the inversion is what they're trying to go for, just like you're hitting on. But I would like to caveat that, if people are researching into magic and stuff and they see that, not to immediately assume that, oh, it's a dark, it could actually just be more of a, like, coming from the actual pagan perspective. Rather than
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you look at like specifically the Church of Satan, they have the inverted pentagram, which fits inside. If you look, they put the goat head inside, which only works with the two horns at the top like this, and then the beard of the goat pointing downwards. So
right. Yeah.
But additionally, even if you take that the pentagram aspect out of that, take just the star and as an allegorical symbol. And what is a star? It's a sun, basically. And the sun is an aspect of light, truth, things like that. It's like
the soul in astrology.
The soul, yeah. Again, with like the Illuminati, they are portraying themselves as the ones that have the light. They are the glowing, it's kind of another form of gaslighting, if you want to look at it that way, where it's their God complex that, well, I have the sun, I have the star, I have the light, that makes me special, and you can look all the way back to like the Wild West, and when they'd swear you in, they'd put a star on you, like it's the rays of light coming out. That has a very strong psychological and subconscious effect on people. Brian, I see your gears are turning. What do you?
Yeah,
what do you
so
think?
that kind of hit me as something like, it's like a child, like in the indoctrination camps known as public school systems. What do they do to reward children? Get
Give
a
you
gold
stars.
star.
Yes.
Very interesting. So then they take that wounded child, and then who has this this wounded complex and this trauma, they play on it, and then as an adult they just get instead of a sticker, it's just a metal star.
I got a gold star. See, look, I did good.
Absolutely.
Daddy's proud of me.
It's
Wow.
That's very interesting to look at.
No, that's very profound observation there, man. I didn't even put those two together. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a psychological validation, basically.
Right. Right.
And what is it in the schools, in the context of the school system? It's a reward for good behavior, which is more or less obedience and conformity.
Right. Yeah. You had also mentioned Bill Cooper, which I think would be a very interesting thing. You'd like to open that can of worms up?
For sure, man. That's a story that really hit me close to home, emotionally, because William Cooper was a very big influential figure in my early stages of waking up, when I first started looking into, the people in power, the symbolism, like I mentioned before. And anyone who hasn't heard of him or isn't too familiar, basically, Bill Cooper was an author, and he had a broadcast. He literally, this was back in the day in like the 90s, and he had equipment in his house that allowed him to actually broadcast a radio show, I think on AM, and you can find all of this online. I highly recommend. It's outstanding work on esoteric symbolism and the dark occult and things like that. But what we're getting at here is what ended up happening to him. First of all, I think it's noteworthy to mention that Alex Jones, for some reason, had a real problem with him and sort of slandered him. There's a recording of him somewhere where he's basically talking about Bill Cooper and calling him a crazy drunk or something to that effect. And it's like, they're very similar personalities in terms of a voice, someone who broadcasts shows and talks about truth and things like that. Why would Alex Jones attack him so harshly if they're supposedly on the same team? And that kind of just really, I already have my doubts about Alex Jones and his who's backing him, who's controlling him, definitely. But that's a whole other rabbit trail. But what ended up happening to Bill Cooper is one day he was at his house and he noticed there was an SUV on his property. So he went out to investigate, and he thought it was just some teens that were partying out there, and there's a reason for this. What it was actually some police members who were there officially, but undercover. They were there to specifically appear as partying teenagers so that his guard would be down. Well, Bill was a very strong advocate of the Second Amendment. He was a very active, militia member. So he did not play. He did not fuck around. And essentially, the police were there as a sting operation to bait him into coming out there so that they could abduct him and basically, put him in jail. and he had done, nothing wrong, uh, by morality standards, obviously. Well, so they were basically there to abduct him, violate his rights, and being who he was, he's not having that. So he defended himself with force and started shooting back started shooting them. And so, he took off running back towards his house. He took a couple of them out, but essentially they killed him. And you could say he shot first, but they were already there with the threat of violence. So by my estimation, by my own standards, he was straight up murdered in cold blood, killed in his home. He fell in his garden bed dead. And that goes to show not only what they're willing to, the lengths that they're willing to go to silence people who are speaking out against the control system, but the fact that um, they they are violent criminals. Just being on one side of the badge or the other does not change what's right. And they straight up murdered him, and he was well within his rights to defend himself. So, it's an absolute tragedy. And then guess what? Of course, when the news got a hold of it, they portrayed him as a crazy militant conspiracy theorist, militia, anarchist, whatever. Like they painted as just this crazy anti-government guy who's violent and unstable, and went on a shooting spree with the cops, of course. So that goes to show what happens when you actually stand in your rights, and defend yourself. You wouldn't even get to be a martyr. They're just going to turn you into another statistic and a crazy person. And of course the police are the heroes who stopped the crazy man. So
right, and I think that's why it's very important to address things, because there's multiple, ways you can address things. There's different tactics you can use. So when we see a certain tactic won't work or would actually play to their advantage, changing the tactic up and you addressing things in ways that you don't give them anything to stand on, can actually be a lot more effective. So I think that's something very interesting. And obviously, sharing information and knowledge and looking at the underlying mindset behind this is one of those. So that's obviously, one of the ways we're going about addressing this. But, I want to look at, some of the things that we actually could see, on a regular basis that happen with police here. And, we've mentioned a lot of these here. And that's things like asset forfeiture, where they don't even have to prove someone, did anything wrong, and they can just, take whatever they want. And then on top of that, they're obviously always, ticketing people. They're throwing them in cages and, saying that if you want to be free, you got to pay us thousands and thousands of dollars. Right. There's regular, lots and lots of evidence of, police beating people, to the point of, even killing them, shooting them, so murder happens on a very regular basis. And, it's not a police shooting. It's not them just doing their job or justified. It's fuck it. Let's call it for what it is. It's murder.
Right.
And they obviously regularly participate in kidnapping and literally putting other human beings in cages so people can profit off of those human beings being there. It's really probably, it's one of the scummiest fucking jobs you could do on planet Earth. And if you think that's your only option, or I need to feed my family, or need to do that, like, are you just so fucking mindless that you can't think for yourself? So the only option is to be a mindless fucking dog that just goes out and does what it's told. Right. Use some fucking imagination. Maybe actually try to expand your knowledge and your creativity, and get a real fucking job where you're not violating other people. Because that's a bullshit fucking excuse.
Right. Also, they play into evidence quite a lot. I know from personal experience, my roommate years ago, they were trying to pull him over for some kind of, drunk driving type of thing. He had just had a shot. He was not actually over the legal limit, but he had just had a shot, so his breath smelled like alcohol. They did the breathalyzer test, which he passed, and then the cop actually put a bag of meth in his vehicle and said, well, what do we have here? And um, I mean, put him through absolute hell for the next like year and a half. He spent tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers, and you know they like drug tested him. He passed everything. None of that even mattered. They, you know, he was battling with the court system for that long afterwards, and I mean, it really messed him up stress wise. He
Mhm.
developed this weird arm injury that was I think was stress related.
Mhm.
Other things like that. I mean, it was an absolute nightmare just because that complete piece of filth cop planted drugs on him because he knew that he wasn't going to get his charge on legitimate measures or whatever. So, you know, it
Right.
does happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing is they'll do whatever they can to enforce their job and do what they're told to do, which is to bring in revenue. And that can be lying, you know, tricking people, planting evidence, using violence. It doesn't matter. Because they're not agents of morality. And you know
Right. They
that
can
really.
legally lie to you, by the way.
Right, absolutely. That's what they're trained to do, in fact.
Yeah, they're encouraged to do. Yeah.
And this leads me to a point here, and it's that an order follower is the exact opposite of a spiritual warrior.
Right.
You know, because a warrior is there to protect. It's someone who is actively seeking, you know, the elevation of their own consciousness, and by doing so, raising the consciousness of those around them. You know, coming from that empowered perspective.
Right. And right
An
action.
order follower is nothing more than a coward. So those two things are, you know, being a spiritual warrior is the exact opposite of what it is to be an order follower.
Right. So, you know, coming full circle, and what we're all about here at the Wizard Factory is, you know, we're trying to cultivate empowered, inspired, encouraged spiritual warriors who understand right action, who exercise conscience, and have reclaimed their sovereignty. You can't be sovereign, like I said before, and not exercise your conscience, because it all comes back to free will and the choices that you make. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So quit your cults.
Yeah, absolutely. Stop believing in the thin blue lie. Um,
Right.
so one of the things we talked about here, obviously, in this talk of, you know, tying it back to the trivium process and getting empowered. Obviously, one of the biggest tools to do that is to know thyself, and the arts of gnosis are, you know, the tools that you can use to do this. Getting into ritual energy work. So, you know, we want to encourage people that they can click on the link below and sign up for our free initiation package that gives them different videos to start learning how to do things like cast a circle to magi, do different energy work, you know, work with the runes. Um, and, you know, obviously we still have, you know, our services such as Vedic astrological consultations, 9 world room readings, and personal adaptive coaching consultations if you're just wanting to look at things from anything from relationships to career choice, finding your soul desire, whatever it may be. We offer these services. And with the arts of gnosis, not only do they allow you to, on a conscious level, start to know yourself more, but we can look at then the specific energetic needs and design ritual that's based specifically for you and your needs. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
start to work with that, you'll start to empower things on the subconscious and the unconscious level, clearing out some of those blockages you have, and then being able to align your three selves so you can manifest the reality that you want to experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like the first step. If you're truly serious about beginning that spiritual journey, you know, it's like trying to run before you can walk, or walk before you can crawl. The arts of self gnosis is really where it begins when it comes to, you know, going from intellectualizing to actually integrating it,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, it's going to give you that window into your actual operating system, and you know, like whatever you might learn about, there's one commonality. all the way across the board is your interaction with it. So if you understand yourself and the dynamics that are at play that kind of determine how you address and handle different situations, whatever you might know about the external world, is always going to come back to how you're interacting and relating with that experience. So you have to take it back to the the principles and the prime aspects of that. You've got to and I think astrology is definitely the very best way to do that. But then you can also look at tarot. You can do the rune readings, and just kind of maybe getting with the adaptive coaching is sort of like taking someone who knows, who's not better or worse than you, but just you could look at it like as just further down the path, and they can look back and hold a mirror up to you and help you better see yourself in a different light that you might not have done before, and that can help you kind of break through some plateaus that you might be experiencing, that feeling of stagnation that we talk a lot about, that's so essential for growth, so
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's probably gonna wrap this up for
Yeah.
this episode. This has been kind of a long, two-part episode. So and we got into some heavy stuff here. So we want to be positive and uplifting, but sometimes the necessary truths to look at aren't necessarily pleasant at first. But what does it come back to is being empowered by that knowledge. So we're not all about rainbows and unicorns here. We're trying to give a holistic, balanced approach of looking and promoting the positive, but also being aware of the world as it really is and not solely how we want it to be. So
Absolutely.
we appreciate you watching. We hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Let us know in the comments what maybe some subject matter, some content that that you'd like to see us get into, or maybe some guests that you'd like to have us try to get on the show. And again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next week. Until then, be empowered, inspired, and encouraged.